Hey, I'm TN with TNDS Design Studio. I got another order for tumblers, so come along with me for this project. Last week, I had an order for some tumblers from a client. He liked the product, they liked the product, and they wanted to order some other ones. The difference in this one is the last week, the tumblers were the blue tumblers, and I did some names for his father-in-law. We're doing the 20-ounce tumblers for his mother-in-law. So come along with me for the project. Hope you enjoy. All right, what I'm going to do is I already have last week's order over here to the side. I like to keep a client's files just in case they come back for more. I have the settings. They might not want the same exact words on their product, but I can always refer back to them for the settings that worked on the other product and bring them on over. I already imported some of the new fonts and the new sayings they want on these, but what I want to do is show you what I did. I'm going to go ahead and bring in the last one and walk you through what I did. So in XTool S1 you could save the files as PNG, or you can use PNGs, SVGs. These were sent over to me as PNGs, and what I'm going to do is import them in. And when I do import them in, they're going to come with this kind of PNG background. It has a white background. As you can see, it's not transparent. In order to work with it, this is also an image, if you will. It came in as an image. So what I want to do is change it over to be an SVG or something that I can work with a vector or use it for engraving. So all we have to do, XCS makes it very, very easy, is we are going to trace the image, and it's going to bring in, and here's where you can actually go and fine tune if you need to, but this file came in pretty clean. It's connecting everywhere, and it looks pretty clean and pretty sharp. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And what we do then is just move the trace out of the way. And what I do is I just delete the PNG. Now, as you can see, it came over, or what it is now is a compound vector that I can use for engraving. And because it's a compound vector, if I resize this, which I'm going to have to do, it all stays, within the aspect ratio and doesn't distort or anything like that. I'm also going to change it to an engrave and move it over here to the side. But what I want to do first, what I need to do now is actually set up the rotary in my S1. I do have it in there. I already have the rotary set up in there, but I now have to put the cup in there. And before I do that, actually what I want to do is set up my workspace. What I want to do is create kind of a virtual canvas, if you will. And in order to do that, I have to have the measurements of the cup that I'm going to be working with. Now, when you're working on the rotary, it's going to ask you to make some changes on here so it'll recognize what you're using. And I am going to be using the rotary chuck. The reason I'm doing that is because if you look at this cup, you're going to see that this cup is actually tapered. So the taper is not going to work well on the rotary. I'm sure you can do it, but I feel more comfortable putting it on the actual chuck device instead of on the rollers. That way it doesn't, wobble up and down or kind of walk, if you will, because it's not entirely flat, making contact with all the rollers at all the time. And because it's a taper, you actually have to adjust the rotary either up or down in order to create a level surface, or as surface as level as you can, to get the laser to get an even burn across everything. So I have the I'll have to put something underneath, because of how I have the rotary oriented. I'm going to have to put something underneath one end, which you'll see when we go into the laser, to correct that, to give me a flat surface. All right, so back to this, I'm choosing the chuck. That's on here. And then I am also choosing the 20-ounce tumbler. Now, some may say because it's a different color, it's going to be a little bit different. This is the same exact tumbler that I use. I'm just going to use it, this setting, and it's tapered for my settings in this particular project. Now, I have to get the measurements. And in order to get the measurements, you have to use the tape measure that comes with your X1 or another soft tape measure. And all I'm doing is all I'm doing here is getting the widest part where I'm actually going. You can do it up here at the top, but I'm going to do the widest part here where I'm actually going to be creating the image or the burn. These are in millimeters. I like working in millimeters. So if you look, it's about 275 millimeters around. So I have to enter that into the system, as well as the area that I want to engrave or at least center or work with, which is this colored area. So the colored area is going to measure from the top. I'm not going to go from the actual top of the cup. I'm going to go from the actual area that I'm going to engrave, and I'll show you what I do with that here on the canvas. So if I measure that to the bottom of the colored area, I'm looking at 142 millimeters. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is create that canvas, if you will. So up here, I'm going to create a rectangle that is of those dimensions that I just described. So 275 around. So the cup is actually going to be oriented to the laser with the bottom of it to the left and the opening to the right. So it's gonna be sideways, if you will. So what I want to do is I want to create, hit R for rectangle. I'm gonna create a canvas of, and since it's sideways, this is actually the top. So think of this as the top of the cup to the right, bottom of the cup to the left. But in order to get the height, that actually on this canvas is the width. So that's 275. And then in order to get the height of I'm sorry, of the actual burn, we have to measure what she sent, which luckily this client actually sent the size that she actually wants to use for her lettering. So for instance, she sends this, and that's the size of the font. That's the size of the font. So what I'm going to do is measure. So she wants the font or the size of it to be, call it 90 millimeters by 30. So 90 by 30 millimeters. So what that tells me is the height of this canvas that I'm creating, which when you turn the cup around will be the width, needs to be no less than 90. So what I'm going to do is just create this and give it 100. There we go. So we're doing well, I got the aspect, 275 by 100. So this is the height of what I'm working with. The cup is laying on its side, top over here, bottom over here, and this is the width of what I'm dealing with on its side. So the letters are actually going in here. So if we work with the one we just measured, we know that she wants it, well, it did it again. So hold on a second. Let me not lock the aspect ratio. This needs to be 100. 100. Oh. All right. So we know that it's 275 by 90. So this was 30 high. And then the width of 90. So we got 90 across left to right, and 30 high is going to be the size actually burning onto the cup. Now, as you can see, I'm going to orient it. And then I'm going to place it on the canvas. Now remember, this is the red part of the cup that I'm actually going to be engraving. So it is sitting like this, opening to the right. As you can see, the letters here. This is the red part that it's sitting on that I drew that canvas. Now, according to the example that she sent me, she wants the top of the letters to be about 30 or 27 millimeters, so maybe 30 millimeters from the top of the red. So what I like to do is create another box. So if I hit rectangle and I make this one just 30 millimeters wide, and it doesn't matter about the height. So if I make this 30 millimeters wide, and then I place this at the very top, line it up. So that means this is the red line, top of the red line. Now I can take this image, line it up. Doesn't have to be centered. It just has to line up there. That's about where she wants it on the cup. Now, the reason why it doesn't have to be centered either up or down, left or right, remember this is a round surface. The canvas goes on. There's no left or right limits that you can see if the left or right is not centered. And as long as you place this where you want it on the cup, as far as having this area, the top to the red, that's what I lined up based on her example. The client will be happy. A couple other things that I want to do here is what I want to do is I want to take this canvas, virtual canvas, if you will, of what I call a virtual canvas. And I want to make sure that there is no output. That way it does not actually burn onto or engrave onto the cup. And I want to go around and I want to make sure that nothing else has an output. See how when I select all this, there's actually something green on the output? That means something in there was going to provide an output and start burn. Now it is not. Then also what I want to do is make sure that I do the same thing for all these. I'm going to grab all these. I'm going to make sure none of them have an output. So now if I was to preview this now, the only thing that's going to show that it is going to burn is the product on the cup. As you can see, right there. Okay, so once I line up the cup, get it onto the engraver and onto the rotary, I'll show you what this looks like once we get it on there with everything turned on and lined up, so you can see again visually, you know, in a virtual space what it's going to like. So I'll get that set up for you. Also, we want to remember that we have to clean off. I put alcohol on this. You want to clean off all your tumblers before you put them in. Make sure there's no debris, oils, or whatever that may be that might interfere with the actual burn. All right. I want to make sure that the cup and the laser are lined up. All right. All right, as I said, you want to make sure that the surface that you're engraving on, where it is engraving, is as level as you can get it. So what I'm going to do is I'll put the level on. I actually will use, now that it's actually set up in there, what I have to do is actually get the distance from the laser to the there you go. Now it shows the distance. Now that line there is where it is lined up and where the laser is currently in the space. So I have to do some adjustments to make sure that the laser is in fact lined up where we want it. And that way, or I need to move the workspace over. So what I usually do now is move the workspace over. So I can just do this, move these out of the way. I can grab these, the whole thing, and put this. Remember, I want the actual burn to start, or the measurement to start at the top of the space, if you will, or the top of the colored area. So that's where that's going to start. And now I just moved the box where I was randomly working to where it is actually in the workspace. So now I can take this, put the box, this, remember, this is the actual area that is colored on the tumbler. This is 30 centimeters down. The laser is actually, as you can see, right on the top of that red. That's where it's going to start. And then this is the center, or where the center of the work is. So now all I have to do is double check my settings. I want to process. So here is the product, the finished product of that burn. However, if you were watching at the very beginning, I noticed that it was actually engraving backwards. I didn't know that it would do this if you orient the rotary tool to the other side. Usually the tool, the motor is oriented to the right on the laser, in the laser. However, I changed it, and for some reason, don't ask me why, had to Google it. I had to change a setting in the actual software, or not software, but on the project itself. And what I had to do, I had to reflect the actual letters in the software in order for it to turn out the way it needed to. So I had to reflect it. So even though on the canvas it is reflected, when it came out, because it was actually rotating backwards, I guess, I don't know, came out right. So I'll have to redo another cup so it doesn't have this error on the back. I'll get that done and move on to the other ones. Okay, we are done with the mugs or the tumblers. Well, another order fulfilled. Thank you for coming along for this. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you like this kind of content, you like to see more, I will be making more videos of the order fulfillments and new designs. Like and subscribe. Also visit my Etsy store, link down below.